All right. Well, Dan, Cody, I am so excited to be here with you both today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hi, thank you.
All right. Well, I think we'll dive into our awesome content because I know we have a lot to cover here today. But before we get rolling, before we dig in, I want to start with a little bit of an introduction. And Dan, I'm wondering if you could maybe let the audience know, first and foremost, why are Backblaze and Veeam here together today? What sparked this awesome friendship? And what really they can expect to get out of the conversation that we'll have today.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, sure. So Backblaze and Veeam have been backing up customer data and keeping it safe from ransomware for years now. And we wanted to show you how you can design your data armor and complete your data protection strategy today. And we've decided to do this around the theme of building your castle. And when building a castle, you do a lot of the same things that you do when deciding on your defenses for your business. You have to choose your site carefully. You have to agree on a workable design. You lay your foundations, and you fortify your castle with defenses. So, have you built up your defenses? We've seen a lot of these stories in the news and a lot of statistics around how companies are affected by disasters. In fact, Veeam recently surveyed more than 3,000 businesses and IT leaders on their IT and data protection strategies and found some interesting statistics related to disaster recovery. The failing hard drives will not come as a surprise to most IT folks. However, hearing that nearly half of servers owned by customers they surveyed suffered at least one outage per year is pretty impactful. And those failures come with a large price tag. The average cost of downtime per minute was around $1,400. Now, keep in mind the price tag, as we will soon discuss a solution that will show you why it all makes sense to adopt the right cloud. We're also seeing organizations trying to keep that downtime to a minimum through cloud adoption. 67% of organizations are using cloud services as part of their data protection strategy, which, if you ask me, is pretty high. As that data is protected safely in the cloud, we need to think about recovery during disaster. So we ask, are you prepared for the inevitable? There's fires, floods, tornadoes, and other natural disasters, as well as human errors and ransomware. So you need to be able to do a few things, including protecting your business critical backups from ransomware attacks, recovering your data after a cybersecurity breach or disaster, and implement a robust backup strategy for data protection to arm your business on-prem, in the cloud, or both. A lot of data protection solutions make storing, protecting, and using data difficult. It can be complex with slow recovery times, user errors, and challenging onboarding systems. There can be conflicts and other costs as well that can get in the way of a good solution for you. This is where Veeam and Backblaze come in. We want to offer the right solution for the ranging needs and use cases that we see. Some of the things we offer are modern data protection. You can back up and restore transparently with infinitely scalable retention and no need to size or manage your backup hardware. We offer ransomware protection through Backblaze Object Lock and Veeam Immutability. You can prevent ransomware from encrypting or deleting backed up data with data immutability. And finally, we offer a backup that won't bankrupt. Backblaze is always hot and predictable storage at cold storage rates, with no minimum penalties and no hidden fees or limits. So together, Veeam and Backblaze want to help arm your business for the inevitable. In the following slides, we want to cover a few popular backup strategies, such as the 3-2-1, the 3-2-1-1-0, the 4-3-2, and also cover how you can protect your backups with immutability and recover it through instant recovery. So one of the most common strategies historically has been the 3-2-1 strategy. The 3-2-1 strategy, many of you may be familiar with. It suggests keeping 3 copies of your data with 2 on site on 2 different forms of media, such as in this diagram, there is a hard drive and a tape. That tape could also be cloud, and 1 offsite location. So I wanted to take a moment to tell you about one of our Backblaze and Veeam customers who switched to Veeam and Backblaze to save time and achieve their goals in IT. Kings County of California previously they had a looming bill and were eager to replace their on-site tapes and out-of-warranty tape drives. So they decided to adopt a new IT approach for backups using cloud. They implemented Veeam software in 2019, but they still needed cloud storage to further protect their data from disasters. So their solution was to, while using Veeam, add Backblaze as their cloud option, achieving a 3-2-1 backup strategy and immutability through Veeam's scale-out backup repository, leveraging Backblaze as their capacity tier. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how exactly that works. So as you can see here from this diagram, you have your VMware servers, and those are being sent to a scale-out backup repository that consists of 2 different tiers. The scale-out backup repository is a selectable option in Veeam when you're creating a backup job and trying to point to a location, and this lets us scale out your backups to Backblaze. So the first tier is going to be your server or your NAS, and then you're going to be given an option on the performance or on the capacity tier page to copy, move, or do some sort of combination of the two, your files over to Backblaze. Now, up until a couple of weeks ago, I would have said that this is the only and best way to send your data to Backblaze through our partnership with Veeam. But as of Veeam 12, some things have changed. So I wanted to give Cody an opportunity to jump in here and tell us about some of the changes that we can expect to see.
Sure. So that's correct. V12 came out, I guess, 2-3 weeks ago. With that, we started to support direct-to-object storage. So now somebody, after they add an object repository in their job settings, they could select that object repository directly. For most customers, I think the scale-out repository is still going to make more sense. But there's definitely some use cases that direct-to-object is going to make a lot more sense. So that performance tier gives you that on-site copy that you can quickly recover, virtually no latency because it's on-prem, usually in a couple racks over. But we have a lot of customers that are geographically dispersed. Maybe they have small remote offices or branch offices, or edge computing locations, or just traveling people with laptops. So we all work from home anymore. So trying to send backup data from my laptop to our corporate data center might not make sense, and we can configure edge devices, small remote offices, just to go directly up into the cloud. So for certain workloads, it's definitely going to be something to consider now that V12 is out.
Thank you, Cody. Yeah.
One other use case I would recommend, or that I've seen people interested in, is NAS data. So VMware data, agents, physical computers. Scale-out repository probably still makes more sense because you want to live boot it, but for a lot of people that are considering backing up large filers with SMB or NFS storage, object storage is definitely cheaper, and it gets in that offsite copy. So
fantastic. Thank you. Now, the next thing I wanted to touch on actually has to do with the lock that you see touching the Backblaze cloud on this diagram here. That lock is referring to what Backblaze calls object lock and what Veeam calls immutability. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Object lock, it boosts protection from ransomware and unintended deletions with bucket immutability for no added cost. So how it works, when you turn on object lock on your Backblaze bucket, this lets you use immutability with Veeam through your object storage repository. So what this does is it lets you upload the data, lets you access the data, and it prevents that data from being modified, deleted, or written over for the amount of time that you set, giving you that ransomware protection. And the best part about all of this is that it's extremely easy to do. You can protect it and lock it with just 2 clicks. Enable object lock on Backblaze, check the box for immutability on Veeam, and just like that, you have ransomware protection.
Yeah, just to chime in real quick, when I was on our pre-sales team, I handled a lot of security questionnaires, and in the past, that air-gapped, separated off the network copy was really strictly reserved for tape, but object lock, makes that immutability a real, equivalent option, because if someone compromises the network and gains privileged access to your backup server, they can't go in and delete that data. They have to wait, and you're sure that there's an untouched, unchanged copy of your backups.
Mm-hmm. So that actually is a good segue into the next slide, which I may have shown for a second there. But does this offline or air-gapped copy count towards is that for your 32110 strategy?
Yes, the offline copy would the air-gapped would immutability would count as that offline, untouched, unable to be modified version of the backup storage. So
excellent. Yeah. So this 32110 strategy, much like the 321, still recommends 3 copies to on-site, 2 different forms of media, and 1 off-site. But now, with the added option of Veeam immutability or Backblaze object lock, you get to satisfy even more requirements, such as making your copy off-site or air-gapped, or offline, sorry. And the 0 is ensuring all recoverability solutions have 0 errors. So testing your recoverability solutions. Is that right?
Yes, the 0 is validating your backups by using something like Sure Backup to test the backup copies that you have, to make sure that the data that was sent to the cloud is also able to be recovered, and that the data is valid. So, and there's other recovery options. There's manual testing and ways to do it, but Sure Backup is really what that was the point of.
Okay. There is another backup strategy that we want to talk about today. That's the 432 strategy. This recommends 4 copies, 2 on site in 2 physical locations, 1 in the cloud, and 2 offsite as well. Is this the backup strategy that is sort of the most robust right now over the 32110? Do they work together? Well, there's a lot of different strategies out there. So when does this one fit in? Would you say?
So a strategy like this, I would see this more for some of our larger commercial customers or enterprise customers that have multiple data centers, multiple sites that they can, have their initial copy on-prem or a snapshot of their on their primary storage array, and then an additional backup copy to another site, and then tiering out to object storage, keeping multiple versions of that data, probably for different retention periods, some of which are able to be recovered extremely quickly from just reverting snapshots, or doing even instant recovery from object storage.
Thank you. So I wanted to jump into another customer story of ours that Backblaze and Veeam share. This is about continuity centers, and continuity centers is a business continuity and disaster recovery as a service provider. And with ransomware on the rise, they wanted to provide their customers the added security of ransomware without increasing their prices. They're determined to implement immutability in 2020, so they selected Veeam backup software for its robust recovery support, and they just needed a compatible storage solution for the data retention. The solution was that they resolved to use Veeam with Backblaze immutability. The moment they heard about Backblaze support with immutability, got into contact with us, and in under an hour of configuration, they were already sending their customer backup data to Backblaze B2 with that immutable flag. Now, we've discussed backup. Let's move on to disaster recovery and how to get that data back. So disaster recovery options can vary. As you see, we list 3 options here. The first being your traditional disaster recovery option. The traditional DR option is what a lot of companies consider, as they are in full control of this option and they're responsible for it. This option comes at a cost, but if your RTO is really short, it may be worth it to pursue this option. This is a trade-off between cost and recovery time. Second option is sort of like a traditional DR, but you're paying a cloud-based service to host for you. So there are a number of hyperscalers out there that allow you to recover in their environment. And these companies charge for both compute and storage in a bundled price, waiting for the day you get hit with a disaster, and so that when you need to do the restores, it's ready for you. The RTO for this is similar, and there's, again, a payoff for cost when going with the second option. And the third and final option here is disaster recovery as a service. Disaster recovery as a service can save organizations money by eliminating the need for provisioning and maintaining an organization's own offsite disaster recovery environment. However, organizations should evaluate and understand service level agreements. Many businesses with lean IT teams simply can't afford to take the time needed to research, implement, and fully test DR recovery plans. So this is where disaster recovery as a service takes the burden off of planning for a disaster for an organization and puts it into the hands of experts in disaster recovery scenarios. So what is required for a successful disaster recovery plan? You can think of it in terms of these three things. You need backup software, you need data storage, and you need infrastructure to restore that data to in the event of a disaster. So Backblaze has a solution that we call instant recovery in any cloud. And what is it exactly? It's a combination of Veeam's backup software, Backblaze's data storage, and really any cloud infrastructure. We like to show Phoenix Snap here because when using instant recovery in any cloud with our partner Phoenix Snap's compute, you get free egress when doing your restores. So how does instant recovery in any cloud work? Well, in 15 minutes, you can have your hosts up and running thanks to a simple cut and paste setup that offers minimum complexity in disaster recovery scenarios. Recovery in any cloud, it works through a pre-built code package that your staff can use to create a digital mirror image of your on-premises infrastructure using an Ansible script. This can be customized for other compute providers as well, so not just Phoenix Snap, but really any compute provider, with a couple exceptions. Primarily, there needs to be support for bare metal. And you can scale this capacity at any time in a matter of minutes if needed.
Yeah, and just to chime in here, we do have various hybrid cloud scenarios that we have. I know Veeam, and I'm sure Backblaze is the same way. We deal with a lot of different hyperscalers, but also more regional cloud service providers that are partners and offer VMware environments or access to bare metal servers where someone can kick off either instant VMware recovery from our perspective. But we could also perform full VM restores if something is needs to be translated to restored to VMC, like an Amazon EC2 instance, or restore to GCE, or restore to Azure VM. So once that backup server connects to the object storage, you have all the functionality that you would have if the environment was still there. You just have to have an environment to recover to, which is why it's critical to have that offsite safe copy that's online all the time that can be accessed. Because if that source data center is gone, the disaster recovery site might also be gone. Or if there's a ransomware event and those data centers are always connected, chances are they might be compromised as well, and you might need to put that hardware in the hands of law enforcement or in auditors to go in and dive through it, where spinning up a new cloud environment kind of gives you that hardware on demand effect.
Yeah. So think about what backup strategy is right for you through the 321, the 32110, the 432, and consider immutability with object lock and instant recovery in any cloud. We'd like to connect and discuss how Veeam and Backblaze can arm your business. So please reach out to us. You can get started in 3 simple steps backing up your Veeam backups to Backblaze using the scale out or direct to cloud through Veeam 12. It's just a matter of creating a Backblaze account, adding B2 as a repository via the scale out, and checking the box to move and or copy your restore points to the cloud and run your backup job. And finally, I want to make an announcement that we will be at Veeam 2023 this year. So please come visit us between May 22nd, 24th at the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach, Florida. You can register today by scanning this QR code. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much.
I'm chiming in there. I want to go to Miami. I want to come hang out. For anyone that hasn't been there, doing a quick sidebar before I get into some audience questions, what can you expect? What's going to be exciting at Veeam? What's that experience like?
Dan, have you been before?
So I have not been to Veeam at the floor, but I did get to go to Las Vegas last year for some of the Veeam training. And even the training alone was a blast. So maybe I'll be at Miami Beach this year for the actual floor portion of it. So,
yeah, we're putting in a plug for Dan to go to Miami. Cody, have you been? What can you tell us?
I have been. The last time we were in Miami, I think, is the only one that I've missed on site. So I'm hoping my sessions that I've submitted get accepted on site.
So this is new. We're all trying to get to Miami here. This is our audition tape to go to Big Brother Veeam Miami house.
Yeah, it's always a good combination of sessions. There's definitely some executive level discussions that are, for IT decision makers, but usually there's a lot of great sessions from our product strategy team, from our support team, and SEs will submit. And, we like to dive into some of the nitty gritty details and nerd out about, automating things with PowerShell or Ansible, or, how to, perform backups without actually leaving the internet, going over the public internet to get out to the cloud. And there's always a good variety of sessions. Something
all the best stuff. I love it. That's awesome. Okay, well, 101 reasons besides the sunshine to go to Veeam. And if you needed an extra one, you can chat with Backblaze and hang out with, press dial 1 to vote for Dan to go to Miami, so you can hang out with him there.
Do it.
I love that. Okay, well, this has been an awesome conversation, and I love kind of seeing the back and forth a little bit between Backblaze and Veeam as on display here with Cody and Dan. And I do want to get to a few questions coming in from our audience. I actually want to start with this one because somebody asked it, and I think that sometimes people feel a little bit sheepish around asking for some of those sort of basic, what can feel like a basic terminology discussion. But since I saw it, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm glad that that somebody asked it here. Can you guys go back over immutability versus object lock and what those things are and how they're connected, or not?
Sure. I'm happy to chime in. So immutability is kind of a broad term that just means that once an object has been created, it can't be modified. So it's you write it once, and then after a certain period of time, it can be deleted, but it can't really be modified during that period. So legacy backup storage devices, whether that's a Windows server, a Linux server, a NAS device, if ransomware gets into an environment, it can go through and even encrypt the backup files and turn them into something that can't be read or can't be usable for recovery purposes. So making an object repository immutable it leverages the object lock feature that's built into the APIs that we use to talk to Backblaze. So we are uploading blocks, and then the way that our backup files are structured is a little different with object storage versus physical block devices or file-based devices on-prem. So we are not uploading a big full backup file. We're uploading small 1 megabyte objects that represent the data that's already been compressed and deduped, and then sent up to object storage to be retained for a certain period of time. So with that ability to set immutability per object through the object lock API, we can go through and keep track of the blocks that are being referenced and all of the restore points, and make sure that their immutability is kept on a per object basis for as long as that file or that object exists in the bucket and is related to an immutable restore point. That way we don't have to upload the full backup over multiple times, which takes up a lot of bandwidth, takes up a lot of time. We leverage an incremental forever kind of approach, barring you taking active full backups on-prem. So.
Perfect. Great. Dan, anything you wanted to add to that or answered?
Oh, that was pretty concise, I'd say. Yeah.
Comprehensive. Great.
Thank you, Cody.
I'm going to ask this question here from Rob, wondering about protecting Office 365. Can you dig into that a little bit?
Sure. So we have multiple products. Veeam Backup and Replication is kind of our on-prem solution for VMware, Hyper-V, physical servers, mostly looking at traditional infrastructure servers and laptops and whatnot. But we do have a SaaS product for backing up Microsoft 365, which is our Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. It will connect out to Exchange Online and SharePoint or OneDrive Teams and protect that data. And it has the ability to write to an object repository, which can be Backblaze, which is very cost efficient. And the performance is we do recommend people switch to object repositories versus some of the initial versions were leveraging older Jet databases, which is what Exchange uses. So that object repository allows for better retention, and it doesn't have all the performance problems of trying to run backups inside a database on a Microsoft Windows server.
Yeah, and I was going through the version 7 that just came out, the user guide for this, and I did notice that as of version 7, Office or Microsoft 365 backup customers can now not only send it directly to a cloud instead of having to offload it, but also make that data immutable as well. So It's really exciting from our perspective as well.
Right. Yeah. Considering email is we're all lost when it's not working. So now the one big difference I would say for backups of M365 versus on-prem is recovery is still dependent on Exchange or SharePoint Online being available. So, but you do have that data for long periods of time. So let's say the user is accidentally deleted, or they leave and then come back, or something happens that SharePoint gets attacked and all of your data is encrypted. The ability to recover is there, and having it out in the cloud makes it easier from a scale perspective versus trying to coordinate physical servers or large virtual machines.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question here from Mike because the use cases that we talked about, the counties and Cody, I think at one point you were talking about some of the large enterprise solutions. So I'm wondering if there's a few folks in the audience who might be asking the same question that Mike is asking here, which is basically looking at, hey, if we have a smaller organization, does this solution still make sense for us?
Oh yeah. I mean, a large portion of Veeam's customers are SMB or small commercial. So we definitely scale up to some of the largest enterprises. I think the largest customer I've worked with has 20 to 30,000 VMs. But when I was in support, most of the customers that I would have call in probably had somewhere between 10 and a couple hundred VMs. So, we scan we cover the entire gamut. Dan, what do you guys see from your customer perspective?
I see much of the same. We specialize in small to medium-sized businesses, but we can scale up to the larger enterprise as well.
Cool. All right, love it. And I know I do want to be aware of time, but I think we've got a few more questions that I want to get to. A question here asking about the resources that might be that would sort of be required in order to, I know we talked a little bit about implementation being pretty easy and quick, but in terms of maintenance, and on the note of small teams, are people going to have to provision these big teams to be monitoring and maintaining this type of solution, or pretty easy once you get rolling? And I'm going to tack on a question there. How good is the customer support? This is such a loaded question. How much support can they expect to get from Veeam, from Backblaze along the way, if there are questions that come up?
Yeah. Well, I as a solutions engineer at Backblaze, I help Backblaze and Veeam customers jointly getting their scale-out repositories set up, if not every day, at least a couple of times a week. And in my experience, it's been a fairly set it and forget it situation. Sometimes an error comes up and they reach out a couple weeks later, hey, I need help with this error. And I'm the person they can reach out to get that help. So if you are interested in getting started with Backblaze backups, you'll have someone like me, a solutions engineer, there to help you along the way getting set up. And our support is great, also available on our help pages. We have live chat, email services. They're great. So.
Yeah, I know I started at Veeam in support 12 years ago. So, and it's always been a really really great organization. Like, the people there really want to help you and try to go out of their way. And then, we also have field engineers who help people on a regular basis, or inside engineers, depending on the size of the business and the relationship you have. So, and then our forums is always, it's always monitored by our product managers and R&D folks to kind of chime in and provide support as well.
Okay, I love this. I'm thinking now I'm going to pull a little bit from high school literature classes, and that whole thing of like, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm gonna ask you guys to play a little bit of a literary game with me, and we're going to go back through some of the things that we went over today, because there was a lot. So I think kind of what we started with, we were talking about why this partnership. Dan, can you give me in a quick summary sentence why Backblaze and Veeam, and what is unique about that partnership?
Yeah, so we're very easy to set up. These setups take 20 minutes tops. And I'm running into someone who's using Veeam already. They want to add Backblaze. It's done on a single phone call. So I think that's pretty amazing. We offer immutability at no additional cost. We have no minimum retention fees that might punish you for getting rid of your data early. So, we're not going to be hitting you with hidden fees. And, I think that makes us a pretty unique offering in this environment.
Yeah, I like that. Cody, do you have anything from the Veeam perspective? I know you guys work with, a lot of different teams, and what makes you excited about Backblaze and Veeam as a partnership?
Yeah, I do have experience with a handful of different providers. The thing I like about Backblaze is it's it's kind of decoupled from all of your traditional hyperscalers. So Veeam has always tried to to be an agnostic when it comes to storage, and leveraging somebody who's dedicated, best in class, focuses on an area and tries to provide a great product for a good price. That's always a win in my book.
I love that. If there was one thing, and again, in line with kind of looking back at everything that we just talked about, Dan, I'll start with you, and then Cody, if you have anything you want to add. If there was one thing that you want everyone in the audience to walk away, either knowing and understanding and feeling more solid on, or asking themselves and spending some time researching after we wrap today, what would that thing or idea or question be?
Yeah, I guess I want you to ask yourself what your current backup strategy is, and if it is prepared for something like ransomware or a disaster should it happen. And remember that if you feel like there is sort of a gap in your armor, as we put it today, that something like adding Backblaze as a capacity tier in your scale out is really quick and easy to do, and you should consider it.
Okay, I like it. Cody, anything you want to add on that note?
No, I mean, security is it's an in-depth kind of strategy. You have to limit access to the backup server. You have to keep the network restricted, not give anybody too many permissions. But there's always you always have to have that last line of defense, and having a copy of data on something that's immutable, gives people peace of mind at night, I think. So
I love that. Yeah. And we started this conversation, and Dan, you just kind of went back to it a little bit. We started this conversation talking about the walls. And I think for a long time, we've been really focused on those castle walls, or, everyone has different analogies, right? It's the security onion, the security rainbow, the security castle, all the different things. But it's very focused on that external, and a lot of what we're talking about today is, it was funny. I was chatting, Dan, with your team about this when we first started talking about this idea, was sort of, everyone's so focused on the external, and then everyone inside the castle is walking around in their pajamas and fuzzy slippers. And so if the barbarian hordes broke through the walls of your castle, your defenses are down at that point. You've got, fuzzy pink slippers on in your bathrobe, and you're not prepared for anything. So, without taking that metaphor too far, I think today what we were talking about a little bit was making sure that your castle is filled with well-armed knights and people that are, making sure that you're ready for that, unfortunately, what might be the inevitable for, somebody getting through the castle walls.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everyone out there is feeling like they've taken their fuzzy bath slippers off and donned their shiny armor. Feeling ready to rock. I'm going to wrap things up here pretty quick, but I do want to make sure that I ask you again, Dan, I know you've given us a few next steps and things, and obviously we've got Veeam up on the screen for everyone here. But if you were going to recommend a first step to getting started and kind of taking this next step to get to know Backblaze and Veeam and get connected, what is the very first thing that you would recommend?
You can create an account with us. You can contact our sales team if you're ready to get started, and know that every Backblaze account has a free 10 gigabytes that you can use to actually start sending us or sending your backups to us to test it yourself. So don't hesitate. It's easy to get started. Just try it out. Thanks.
I love that. Nice and easy. Okay. Well, Dan and Cody, honestly, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you both today. And I have to say, I love seeing these types of partnerships. I think it makes building that layered security so much easier when a couple of the layers are already sort of nicely Legoed together for us. And it powers up everything that we're able to do, seeing these solutions come together. And it's also really fun having these conversations, because I think so often, we can learn from one another, and we can collaborate on knowledge sharing as well as resource sharing. So I want to thank you both for facilitating that for us today.
Yep.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, and thank you to everyone out there who answered a question. Yeah, you guys are all answering questions out there. Thank you so much to everyone who asked a question today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you all. And Dan and Cody, thanks again for joining us.